Ein heißer Oscar-Kandidat erlebte heute seine Deutschlandpremiere, A Complete Unknown von James Mangold, außerhalb der Konkurrenz als Berlinale Special Gala. Wir erleben hier den blutjungen Bob Dylan auf dem Weg zu sich selbst und zum Weltruhm Anfang der 60er Jahre in New York in der Zeit des großen Aufbruchs. Dylan trifft hier seine Idole wie Pete Seeger und Woody Guthrie, bleibt in der Folkszene aber unabhängig und wird die Musik bald für immer verändern. Als Bob Dylan ist der ebenfalls Oscar-nominierte Timothée Chalamet zu sehen, der alle Songs selbst singt. Er brachte Starglanz nach Berlin. Die Pressekonferenz zum Dylan-Biopic A Complete Unknown.
Begrüßen wir den Mann, der diesen Song geschrieben hat. Komm raus, Bobby. Ich habe was Passendes ausgewählt.
Was Passendes?
Leck mich einfach am Singen.
Away from
Fantastic.
Wonderful. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jacqueline Lianga. I'm the co-director of the film program here at the Berlinale. Welcome to the 75th anniversary of the Berlinale and today's press conference for A Complete Unknown, a Berlinale special gala. And we have a very special guest with us here. Before we get into questions, I just want to say thank you for coming, and you've all seen this extraordinary film and performance, and an actor who won a Breakthrough Audience Award, the Gotham's Award, the Spirit Awards Breakthrough Actor in 2017, and now we've seen this meteoric rise and this great performance. So please help me welcome Timothée Chalamet.
Thank you.
Well, we will start with some questions, but before we get started, I would love for you to share with us what drew you to this role, why you chose this role.
Well, firstly, it was the incomparable artist that is Bob Dylan and the enormous legacy he's left behind. And also that before I even had jumped into the project in its entirety, I felt he was leaving behind a roadmap for other artists, really, because I'm an actor and I'm not a musician, to follow, and I found that to be tremendously inspiring. After that, of course, it was James Mangold and the incredible script he wrote, and ultimately it was this 5.5-year process that gave to me more than I feel like, more than anything I ever worked on. It was the gift that kept on giving to this day. So there were a lot of factors that went into it, but principally it was the man, the myth, the legend, Bob Dylan, and wanting to be a part of his worldview.
Thank you. So we'll start in the middle, yes, in the white short blouse, yes. And a mic, oh, she's right there, yeah.
Hi, this is Lisa Foster, German press agency DPA. You said in an interview that you gained 20 pounds for the role.
Mm-hmm.
Was that difficult, easy, and how did you do it?
Well, but just by eating a lot, really. And just by eating a lot. What did I eat? Just a lot of food. Stuff like that. But, yeah, that's the long and short answer to that. You know, the Bob Dylan of 1965 or 1966, which the movie doesn't go into, was sort of thin and emaciated and maybe, you know, fried by his experience touring the world, was very different than the one that arrived to New York in 1961. So really it was more about trying to get that part of his body right in the early 60s, where he definitely had more weight than I did at the time.
There's a woman in blue there. Yes, just right there. Thanks.
Good luck for the Oscars. You're playing a Bob Dylan who uncompromisingly chooses his individual art. Do you consider it is advisable to, like Dylan did, separate aesthetics and activism? And is that possible for artists that want to be responsible in these troubled times?
Wow. That's why it's so good to come to Europe, man, because the questions are so much better out here. So much better. I mean, look, he left behind a complicated legacy in that regard, because I think he was sort of, you know, this is nothing new to say that he sort of resented or was in tension with the fact that he was labeled a savior of his generation, and he made music and art that was so thoughtful in the early 60s. But as the Woodstock generation came to fruition in the late 60s, he didn't go to Woodstock, you know, and he was making Nashville Skyline and Blonde on Blonde in a period where Joan Baez and figures like that were going to protests and marches. So to answer your question directly, I think, how did you say it? You said to divorce aesthetics from the nature of your art, of activism. Yeah, if we're talking in the language of Bob Dylan, I think he definitely did. I mean, his music spoke for itself. My theory on it, my interpretation, and I can't speak for Bob because he's alive and well in Malibu, so he could tell you better than I could. My interpretation is that topical songwriting, political songwriting, was a texture for him to express himself through in the early 60s, mid-60s. In that rock and roll, bringing it all back home, Buddy Holly, Little Richard, Elvis Presley, those are the people he initially aspired to be. Once he was in a position where he could get a band, and once he was in a position where culturally the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Kinks were taking over, I think in many ways it wasn't as complicated as political activism. I think it was just more fun to have a band and to play rock and roll. And if you look at all of Bob's legacy, I won't bore everyone with a history class, but he really went out of his way to not be pinned down as an activist, even though his music was really thoughtful. You know, there was the famous Farm Aid concert that was inspired by what he said at Live Aid, if I'm not mistaken, something of that. I think it was the comments he made at Live Aid or a different benefit concert, comments about farmers in America that were considered controversial at the time that inspired Farm Aid, Willie Nelson's benefit concert to help struggling farmers in America at that time. So it wasn't like his work was strictly non-political the rest of his life, but a lot of it was, you know.
And, you know, what I also loved was, you know, with that, the evolution of also just, did you think about that as you learned to play the guitar, the different styles of guitar? What was that process like for you as you learned the instrument?
Yeah, well, it always varied. Some Bob Dylan fans think his guitar playing peaked in the 80s and 90s, you know, that in the 60s he wasn't as deft a guitar player yet. That meant for me, someone who was a non-experienced guitar player, you know, in the 5.5 years I had to prepare, it felt achievable, the task in front of me. And, you know, his playing in the 60s with a lot of downstrokes, it was quite heavy. I'm really proud of the rendition of A Hard Rain's Gonna Fall in the movie the live version, because that's very much, at least that's the way I'd modeled it, was very much in the nature or the pattern of how he played that song live in the 60s. It's different than how he would have played it on the album. So, you know, I was never academic in my preparation for this role. It was all by osmosis. I just lived in this material endlessly, day and night, for 5.5 years, not as an obligation, not as work, but because Bob Dylan, the man, the artist, became a shining light for me and has guided me to this day. The individuality and the refusal to be a part of the mess.
Okay. There's up here this woman in the what? Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, Mr. Chalamet, CM Emamuni, TTT from the Culture Show. I wonder what being Bob Dylan taught you about how you look on the present, because we are living in wild times, right? Mm-hmm. Crises, wars, like the rise of populism and the extreme right. So what do you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
we can bring it, I think we can bring it to something like that to the film, you know. I think if more of a question that's specific to, as opposed to a personal political point of view, but kind of a question around the film.
I don't think that's necessarily a political question, but I think it's in the nature of his music, the warnings against, you know, cult-like figures. But I think with Bob, what's very true too and inspiring is, again, I won't speak for him because he's alive and well in Malibu, literally. But my interpretation is just be wary of any savior-like figures. It doesn't matter, you know. I don't know how it would have changed me, because the truth is, I'm not even really, this is the truth, is I'm not interested in how it changed me or even explaining how it changed me, in as much as I know it did. And the way it did wasn't academic. And so much of the pressure in Hollywood or in show business is like, people want you to know where you're at, including Bob Dylan. You watch the press conferences he did like today. I was excited to come here today because I don't have Jim Mangold and Elle Fanning and Edward Norton and Monica do all the talking myself. And, you know, so I don't know what I would have taken from it. Like I just said, what I would have learned is what I just said, just to be wary of anybody who says they have a solution. Be wary. That's honestly the warning in Frank Herbert's Dune, which was written in the same period of American history. Granted, Frank Herbert was on the West Coast, probably doing acid at a typewriter, and Bob Dylan was on the East Coast, but the messaging was still similar, which was, you know, be wary of any cult-like figures, you know.
Where is, in the middle here?
Hello, first of all, Natalia Zhuk, Carta Berlin. First of all, thank you for you being the artist whose participation is in the project is already the quality stamp, I would say.
Amazing.
For me, thank you. And my question, first, it's a lot of scenes in the film where all the acting happens between the lines through gazing, I don't know, small mimic changes, especially in that scene that in the trailer when you sing together during the festival. Could you elaborate a little bit on your process or how you worked on this particular way of transferring the emotions? Because for me, it was a lot of this in this film, and I loved the way it was done very much. And a short question, didn't you think that it would be a perfect musical about Bob Dylan to see it on stage, live? I mean, you're a perfect man for the job.
Well, they did a musical, Girl from the North Country.
Yes,
it's
okay. Great.
All right. I was waiting to see if anybody was going to give that woo, because maybe somebody had seen it, but I guess not. Yeah, but not a lot of Broadway people here. But you know, I wouldn't know how to answer that. You know, I focused mostly on the music in the movie, or rather, that was what made me most passionate. For all the scene work, which is really why the actors were there. James Mangold is this fantastic director who had such a grip on that. That's just the truth. I'm not just giving him his flowers where they're not due. This is a master director who also handled challenging biopic material with Johnny Cash and walked the line with really deft hands. I was talking about this with a friend recently, like, only Mangold could have directed this movie and handled it with such care. Bob Dylan's such a brilliant, cool guy that the movie could have been detached in honor of him. But then if you didn't know about Bob Dylan, you saw the movie, you go, all right, well, this is not inviting me in the tent. And I'm so proud of what Mangold did, you know, because it invites you in the tent. I don't know if that answers your question directly, but as far as the scene work, you know, I left it in Mangold's hands. That's why we're there as actors, to bring it to life. If you get too scientific about it, you can kill your work. Creation and analyzation are different processes, and you want to stay loose and unself-serious when you work.
Hi there, Timothy. Ben Dalton from Screen International. Congratulations on the film, on which you are also a producer. 2 years ago with Bones and All, you spoke about how you were interested in maybe starting to produce some projects that you're not starring in yourself. I just wanted to get an update on your producing ambitions, and are there any plans that you have for that going forwards?
You know, I do have ambitions in that regard. I'm just wary of, I never wanted to be someone that, you know, just slap my name on something, claiming to produce it, and you're really just skimming money off the top, you know. So I'm very proud right now. I think it just says Bones and All, A Complete Unknown, Marty Supreme. And no one knows what Marty Supreme is yet. And I'm very proud of that, because there are things that are actually personal to me, as opposed to like a docu-series on Tubi. Not a lot of Tubi people here either. Also, no disrespect to Tubi.
Hi, question here from Brazil, Rodrigo Fonseca from C7. Congratulations for the amazing acting. I'd like to ask to understand something. How do you listen to music now after an experience like that? How to listen to Bob Dylan now after the film? What did Bob Dylan taught you about music?
Oh, man, I don't have a good answer to that, man. I don't. It's the same, man. It's the absolute same. I got no good answer. But I'm amazed that I keep discovering his music, you know, from different periods, and Time Out of Mind, and, you know, it's the gift that keeps on giving. He left behind so much good music that, but I can't say my process of listening to music's any different, thank God.
Is there a scene in the film that still kind of stays with you a moment, because you know you're in the moment performing as a singer and playing? Is there any scene that sometimes comes back to you now?
I mean, the whole process was really exhilarating, especially all the concert stuff to reenact the Newport Folk Festival. You know, this was an interesting project for me, where I knew the experience I had making it would never compare. Rather, the experience I would have watching it or putting it out in the world would never compare to the experience making it, because I had such a magical time making it, you know. And this is probably the last time I'll probably talk about it. This is the last word. That was my thought before I got here, you know, because I've been going around the world talking about this for 2 months. But I just love this man so much, and I love this movie so much, I would do it for a year. I really would. This was a lifetime's work. This was a spirit being. I was at the Santa Barbara Film Festival the other day, and then they were saying, you know, they were being very nice, and they said, this is the beginning of a long career, you know, and you got so many great things ahead of you. I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if I got a lot more of these in me. I'm not trying to say that in a negative sense, but I had 5.5 years to work on the great, great art of Bob Dylan, like a thinker that is the thinker of the 1960s, you know. And that was a time period where you just stepped outside and things were innovative. Those people and thinkers exist today. You just got to find them in the cracks a little bit more. And I had an excuse to study this man in this period for 5.5 years. Like, what a gift. Yeah.
Just there. No.
Oh, I wasn't ready. Hi. Hello, Anna York, Pop Matters. I don't want to get too political, but I want to kind of broaden the scope a little bit. Here's an open-ended one. Bob Dylan is a very complicated person and a complicated character, and so is Paul Atreides, your Guadagnino characters, hell, I mean Teddy, Little Women, all very, very complex, complicated characters. On the other hand, you pull double duty on SNL, make NFL predictions with surprising accuracy, and seem like an overall very amicable, laid-back dude. So my question is, finally, what is, following on this, what is your aesthetic when you choose the characters you play? Like, you don't have to reveal much about yourself, that's your absolute right, but these are very diverse, very complex characters that thankfully don't seem very similar to you yourself. So what is your aesthetic? What is your activism, if you want to talk about it?
Yeah, my thing is, it's pretty boring. It's just trying to find a fantastic director to work with and going at it from there. You know, I've been lucky where all those projects you mentioned, whether it's Greta Gerwig with Little Women or Denis Villeneuve and Dune or the Luca Guadagnino movies I've made, on the page, these characters are basically different. So I couldn't say it's a much more complicated process than that. I wish I could give you a more pretentious answer, but it's just not the truth. And if I could riff on that a little bit, I just think it's serious. I think it's important to keep that lack of self-seriousness. You know, you want to bring people in the tent of acting, and for me, my movies or the film business, that's why I'm proud to be here. I was here with Call Me By Your Name in a movie called 1 and 2, and these movies are just getting bigger, and I'm proud of that. I don't shy away from that. And I think if I gave you a more pretentious answer to that, somebody could watch it on YouTube and be like, well, fuck this guy, you know. I have no clue what he's talking about. But I'm just trying to work with great directors. You know.
Okay, in the back. Yep.
Hi, I'm Ronnie from the German press agency Radio Service. In the movie we see Bob Dylan struggle with being famous, getting a lot of expectations in the public eye. What personal experience maybe helped you prepare this role and getting relate to that, and how you deal with these challenges in your life as a young global star? Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have a very interesting answer either for that besides the scenes you see in the movie or in the Penny Baker documentary, Don't Look Back. You know, those are things I could just relate to, like almost like viscerally. But it's not an intellectual process. You know, there's nothing, I would say like, you know, the process of what I've gone through the last 7 years or whatever, it's almost like something that happens to you as opposed to what's happening from you. Just point being, it's not really interesting to talk about because there's no conclusion I've made. Like, the only conclusion I've made is to keep my head down, the way I think Bob did, the way I know he did when he made Blonde on, after he made Blonde on Blonde, you know, and he disappeared from the motorcycle accident. I don't know how many Bob fans there are here, but that's my, there we go, woo. That's my mom, but anyway.
Had you played before with other musicians before this movie?
No, not live, not in a band like that. Nope.
What was that like?
It was exhilarating. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. You know. Yeah.
I think about it. You brought it up. You know, the Newport Jazz, like those scenes, the Newport like music scenes, and this sort of this community. And did you feel like there was you got to be a part of this that feeling by playing together?
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone was locked in. I mean, we had tremendous session musicians, some of the most talented guys in New York that were, especially at the Newport Folk Festival, but also the stuff you've seen at the Columbia Records in New York. It was amazing, man. We were recreating these were the people. Nina Simone, Bob Dylan, Jimi Hendrix. I didn't used to be like this. I used to be a real contemporary, like, you know, top 50 person. And now you could draw a through line not only from Bob Dylan or the Beatles or only Jimi Hendrix and Nina Simone, Joni Mitchell. You know, you could draw a through line to a lot of the music today. This is the period to get educated on. And I just feel like I got to, in the multiverse of this kind of shit, I got to play the guy. That's how I feel. I play the thinker. You know, I keep talking about Frank Ocean, this press tour, but I feel like that too. Like now, that's Frank Ocean. He's sort of the person that's guiding us culturally from up here. So, yeah.
That's amazing. It sounds like you got to listen to a lot of different
music,
folk, music, jazz, rock.
Everything, everything. Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah.
Thank you. Hey, Joe from ZDF. In the movie, Bob Dylan writes to Johnny Cash, "Success has pulverized me. Look around." Mm-hmm. Do you sometimes feel the same?
No, I feel... Oh, no, I should give you a cryptic, pretentious answer, but no, I just gotta be honest. I really don't. I feel like... I don't know, like I feel like this is the last word, so this is the last time I ever get to talk in this context of this movie. I feel like I'm an enormous movie fan. I'm a fan of, I don't want to say the movie business, but I'm a fan of movies that work. And I study this stuff, and I study the numbers of it, and it ain't what it was in the 90s or 2000s. You could give it a more academic thing about streaming, blah, blah, blah. People go watch things on their computers more than they do in movies. So if I come here today as opposed to when I was here for 1 and 2 or Call Me By Your Name and I go, yeah, man, like, I'm one of the good guys in the sense that my heart is in the right place with these movies. Yeah. I can't say if I'm the most talented guy. I can't say if I'm the most skilled, but I know I got the biggest heart and I know I'm working the hardest. I just am. So if I see this kind of thing, I go, all right, things are working, you know. And this is a movie about Bob Dylan. This is a movie about the early 1960s, mid-1960s. This wasn't a guarantee that it was going to work, you know.
But it did.
Yeah, thank you. You had to say that. You had to say that part. I couldn't say it.
Yeah, I can say it. No, I mean, I think, you know, we don't have too much time left. And, you know, as you're saying, kind of last words a little bit, I would love, you know, a lot of people have asked you questions over the course of this tour. And maybe some of the same questions. Is there anything you've wanted to say about it that you haven't had to, you haven't had the chance to say yet about the experience of working with this cast and working with James Mangold?
No, I feel like I've done the anti-Bob Dylan and talked endlessly about this, but no, if I had anything left to say, yeah, I mean, you framed it in the context of the cast. What I just outlined about my own hard work on this, you know, everyone brought. Edward Norton brought, Monica brought, Elle Fanning brought. I think we all had a gratitude because we've been working literally over a decade, and we know these projects are few and far between now. Maybe in Europe, I was looking at the Berlinale film program. You guys have a lot of really intellectually driven, artistically driven projects, but I guess we do in the States too, but it's not really, you know, these things are harder to come by. You know, if you look at like, in the late 90s or the 2000s, the amount of, whatever the word is, like artsy or a movie like Rounders with Edward Norton, you know, that kind of movie. Like they don't really make those anymore. So if you get an opportunity to work on something like this, it's a total blessing, and I'm just couldn't be more grateful. You know, it's the last word, but like I could talk about it endlessly. I'm incredibly grateful to Bob Dylan. I'm incredibly grateful to Mangold, to Searchlight for this opportunity. I'm grateful to the Berlin Film Festival for platforming this movie. And, you know, I hope the next time I'm here it's something that says worthy. You know, if people haven't seen it, I hope you guys feel like it is. But I could tell you from the work put in and the drive and the reasons it was made and the fact that it invites you in the tent, it doesn't push you away with its pretension. It's going, hey, we invite you in. I'm like so proud of this.
As you should be. The film is here. It's one of the complex intellectual films that we invited. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.